Hello, my friends. Welcome to this episode of Leadership Synergized, where we hear and learn from individuals who've been there, done that, and where you can find options and ideas and tools to place into your leadership toolbox as we all continue to grow in serving our purpose on earth as a leader. I'm pleased to introduce to you Mr. Steve Witges, who's joining us today. Steve, thank you so much, my friend, for being here and joining Leadership Synergized.
Oh, you bet. It's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this opportunity. We finally made it happen.
Well, yeah, it's taken a little bit, but you had some movement going on and a lot of
Yeah.
career aspects occurring, and I know we're going to get into a lot of that. One thing for our listeners, I know it's probably a very exciting time as you'll be retirement in the next 12 months or so. Well, actually now 6 months, give or take, when this airs. But before we go too far and get to the end of a career, let's talk a little bit about who Steve Witges is.
Yeah, you bet. And Steve Witges. I am a farm boy from Southern Illinois, and born and raised at a grain livestock farm down near the Mount Vernon, Illinois area, and have been involved in agriculture all of my life. And although I always felt when growing up my dad worked us too hard, later in life, I was very grateful for the values he taught us in the area of work ethic, hard work, and those type of things. But so I've always had a passion for agriculture, and ideally, I always wanted to farm. And it's kind of the joke my wife always says is that when Steve grows up someday, he wants to be a farmer. And so I guess that's my way of staying rather youthful. But I'm married to my wife, Jackie. She's from down Nashville, Illinois. So we went to different schools, but not too far away. We've been married for 42 years. And we have 3 sons, and 2 of them are here local with us. One of them's down in San Antonio, Texas area, and 8 grandchildren, and 4 boys, 4 girls. And the boys say that's it. So I always tell everybody we have 8 grandchildren, meaning 8 is enough. And we spend a lot of time with them. They keep us hopping. But been with Farm Credit it'll be 39 years when I retire at the end of February. And I have done just about everything you can do outside of being a CEO, which happened to be one of my early on career goals, but never materialized due to decisions I made and those type of things. But had a blessed career, great experiences, and a lot of success, but a lot of failures that I've learned from as well.
Well, Steve, you hit upon a lot of things. Congratulations to you and your wife, 42 years. Wow, that's fantastic. Admire you all for that. And I'm sure if it's like most, there's been bumps in the road, give or take, or whatever. But you mentioned 8 is enough. I'm not sure how many of our viewers, I recognize the TV show with was it Dick Van Patten back in the day, I think.
Yeah, that's
one of the
right.
main stars in that piece. Good family-oriented show. 80s, 70s, someplace back in there. I kind of lose track of the decades as it moves forward.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know exactly either, but you're right. I've kind of dated myself with that show because any younger viewers have no idea what I'm talking about. But yeah, it was, I think it was the 80s, but I guess we could Google it, but it's not that important.
Yeah, it's not. I go Andy Griffith and Brady Bunch, so I can go back a little bit earlier too in that regard. Steve, you talked about a lot there, and the first thing I just want to pick up on, being a grandparent myself, my wife and I, we actually have a son and his family who live in Houston, not too far away from San Antonio, with our oldest 2 grandsons. We have 4, but I'm not sure anything in my life has impacted me as much in the natural than becoming that grandparent aspect. Talk about your experience in that transition and what you have found and how that has helped Steve in his growth path in life and as a professional.
Yeah, and you've heard this, and other people on here, they always say, man, if you could just skip having kids and go straight to grandkids, it would be amazing. But it's an incredible feeling. And it was extra special with Arce. After having 3 sons, our first grandchild was a girl, and her name's Carly. She started freshman this year in high school, and so I had a special bond with her just because she was the first girl. And it's funny, I've been promising her over the time. I said, remember, you're always going to be Papa's little girl. And when I turned 60 a couple of years ago, she actually made me a birthday card, and on the very back it turned over and she goes, and I will always be your little girl.
Oh, wow.
And so that just tugs at your heart. But I think that, you know, when you have kids, yourself, I mean, life is so busy.
Mm.
You know, you have careers. My wife's a registered nurse. Um, you know, she didn't work full time once we had kids, but she worked part time, and you know, you're so busy, and I think you lose appreciation uh, for the time that you have when they're youngsters, and at least that's my experience. I think, and I don't really have any regrets, but I wish I'd have been more in the moment back then with my kids as they were growing up. And I think that's the big difference. You mature in life, and when you become a grandparent, you just have so much more appreciation for you know, the life and just the privilege and honor to be a grandparent. And it's just, I don't know, it's just you kind of on cloud nine again, you know, from that standpoint. And you know, they're I think they just give you they re-energize me, I think, is what it really probably does more than anything. And just knowing that uh you know, your children are doing the same thing you did some 30 years ago, and just a lot of pride and pride and purpose to keep going. And you know, we sometimes might discount the value we are as grandparents, but you know, at least in our case, we're blessed. I know we're really close with our grandkids, and I think they'd actually miss me if I wasn't around. So I don't know, they just give you a renewed purpose for life in some ways.
That's a great way to say it. And you know what I have found, and similar to what you just said, I have regrets, not regrets that bury me, but you know,
Right.
as we're going up, you know, growing up, and I say growing up when we're younger and we're parents, maybe
Yeah.
for the first time or second time, we grow up in
Yeah.
that piece. But one thing my wife and I take a lot of pride in, you know, we get the family get-togethers right at our phase of life. It's so much fun just to sit back and watch our kids be parents, and then
Yeah.
watch the grandkids be kids. And to your point, there's so much for us to learn, even at our phase of life, through our kids and through our grandkids.
Yeah, yeah. You know, the biggest frustration I've had as a grandparent is timeout. You know, my dad, there was no timeouts. When I was in trouble, we went straight to treatment.
It was a
And
switch, right? Or a
that's
belt
right.
back in
The
the.
biggest frustration I've had is the timeout, because I'm like, oh my God, just swat him on the back and let's move on. But you know, and that's generational, you know, everything's different. And so, but that's the one thing that always pops out to me when I sit back and watch my kids. I'm like, oh God, do away with a timeout. Let's just go straight to the most effective treatment.
You know, to your point as well, and I heard you say 4 boys and 4 girls. We have one granddaughter. She's our third in order, and then 3 grandsons, and there's just something special each time when you get a hug from any of them. But this past summer on my birthday, my wife and I had the privilege to pick up my granddaughter, who's just will soon be 5, from a summer camp of some sort. And the first thing she's doing is running down the lane on the blacktop, just screaming happy birthday and then wanting to give you a hug. And, you know, as a grandparent, as a grandfather, I'm cringing. This is great, but please don't fall and hurt your knee just for this.
Yeah.
But to your point, it's that joy and that rejuvenation, which, and I don't, and it's a great thing, I think, when we reach this phase of life and have had the experiences. I love your word. It just reminds us that we still have a purpose to have energy
Yeah.
about, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes life can suck that out of us.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a big believer in always looking forward to, you know, what's next, what can we shoot for. Kind of drives my wife nuts a little bit, you know, from that standpoint. But I think we have to have something out there we're striving for, and that's what when we wake up every day. And it doesn't have to be anything big from that standpoint. But you know, as I get set to retire from my career at Farm Credit, you know, one of the things that I'm toying with is doing a little public speaking,
Mm.
doing some maybe leadership workshops. I've done a little bit of that in my career within the system itself. I also enjoy speaking with farmer groups, and so those type of things just kind of I hope will extend my purpose beyond going down to the family farm and being a part of that operation. And we own farmland ourselves, and you know, I love to hunt, fish. I got plenty to do. I always hear everybody say once they retire, they're busier than they were before. And I think I can already see why that's going to happen.
Well, you got a lot of life, my friend. Jumping back in, you talked about growing up on the farm, and you just mentioned you're still connected there, and throughout our history here in this country and actually around the world, agriculture has been so critical to the growth and the change of society. Many times, those of us in this fast-paced aspect probably lose track a bit because of all the technological shifts that have occurred throughout our time.
Yeah,
From the steam engine, to the factory press to now the cells and the talking to things, and they change your TV channels or play the music you want to
right.
do. Share with us a little bit about your experiences that you still carry with you from that time frame, because agriculture, the industry, has not gotten any easier throughout the centuries.
Yeah, and it is quite incredible. I tell everybody that works for me, anybody that cares to listen. I mean, when you think about it, when I reflect back on my career, change has been constant. Going back 40 years, and the things that are constant from back when I started. I mean, obviously, technology has just changed totally how we operate farms, and precision agriculture has been one of the greatest things ever from that standpoint, and how it's made us much more efficient and what have you. But something that, and this is just what quickly comes to mind, something that has not changed at all is the importance of relationships,
Mm.
and working, whether it's in my industry as a lender, working with suppliers. And a lot of people want to say that technology has taken over, and take the lending world. I mean, we have a lot more advanced technology and how we deliver our products. But when it boils down to it, when everything's going smoothly and technology works great, that's fine. But when there's issues, relationships come into play, and you gotta work together, and there's always a need for interaction to solve problems. And so those relationships and the depth of those relationships are no different today than they were as back when I started back some 40 years ago.
Very, very well said, in those great words. And it's true in just about any industry that exists. It has to be, right? Because, Steve, I don't know your views. I've had some discussion recently with some individuals that I work with, coaching, and just, through leadership discussions. And, I've really come to appreciate the fact, as I reflect back, the word balance is kind of a misnomer,
Yeah.
because there is really no true balance with work and life. It really depends on the relationships you have developed in both.
Oh, it absolutely does. Because if either one of them are out of balance, I mean, everything is out of balance. And that's like the work-life balance. I've heard people say, what does that mean? When I think about, especially in my career, as and I'm not sure this is a good thing. I mean, I feel like there's times when I put a lot of effort and a lot of time into my career, and it's probably completely out of balance from that standpoint. When you're establishing yourself, it's definitely the case. I think it's one of the challenges we had as being parents young, and growing up. You're establishing yourself in your career. And, it's not about the time, it's about the quality. When it comes to that, I mean, we spend a lot of our waking hours working. So the time wise, there's going to be a lot of time committed to working, but it's more about what's the quality of the time when you're not working, when it comes to that, the personal aspect of it, family, and those type of things. You can pack a lot of power into an hour. And I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but a good hour of really focusing on your family can go a long way in that balance.
Yeah, I concur. Well said in that aspect, Steve. Steve, you talked a little bit earlier when you were kind of reviewing a bit about your career, and you mentioned, you had to go at one point from a CEO perspective. Share with our viewers a bit, as we're in those younger points of our careers, so to speak. Many times we get stuck a bit looking at the title of what's ahead,
Yeah.
rather than maybe being more broad about how can I best serve through my strengths. Talk a little bit in particular, because some of the things that we see in education, as an example, with many individuals, with there not being as many individuals looking to pursue that right now, at least in certain pockets of our country, maybe across the country. Many times leaders are put into roles that maybe they're not prepared for, but because of the title, they've sought that aspect.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a big topic there from that standpoint. And I'm proof positive you don't have to be the sharpest pencil in the room to be a leader. I toy with and I'll get on topic here, but I toy with a leadership program topic called Leadership 2.98 as a topic, because that's my college GPA at 2.98. But
that's pretty good, by the way.
Yeah,
I won't tell you mine.
Okay, but I have seen a lot of examples where people think that that's their purpose and that's what they're focused on, is that title, and growing into that, or not even really focused on growing into that. They just want to get there, and they're not equipped to do that. I mean, I have seen in our business so many times where a high producing officer is the qualification to take that next step, and oftentimes they're not successful there at all. And so, as my career journey came along, everybody kind of asked me, did it work out like you kind of planned? And a lot of it did, but when you're young and aggressive and you want to shoot for the stars and what have you, I mean, you probably have those higher aspirations without even really thinking about what it's going to take to get there, and that type of thing. And I made decisions as opportunities came up within my career, and going back to the work life and the family aspect of it. There are opportunities I passed on because I didn't want to move my family. And in that case, that was more important to me than my career from that standpoint. But I think part of that is just experience and growing up and maturing as a professional from that standpoint. But I know when I'm in my role and hiring people, I really do want to focus on and really try to determine my best. What's the purpose? What drives these individuals? Why do they want to be in the roles that they want to be? Because sometimes it's not quite all cracked up to what you think it is.
Yeah, well said. Many times it may not be. To your point earlier about how fast things have changed. Steve, before we segue out of episode 1 and we prepare for next week's episode, I want to just build a little bit further from your experience aspect, leadership wise, in particular. When you look at the challenges of leaders today, and you think back maybe, and I'm not sure about your experiences, but I know you and I are close generationally in that aspect. But there was a point in time that when an individual was seen with a weakness, or that they had made mistakes, that, well, you might as well just send them out the door. They have no future in the company in that aspect. But now we've learned so much, thank goodness, over the past 40 or 50 years, that a mistake is simply a training and growth opportunity in that segment. I'm not so sure, Steve, that I see where enough of our leadership and our organizations are really taking that mantra to heart and utilizing it as widely as they need to. What's your viewpoint there?
I think you're exactly right. And, the way I view mistakes too is that, if they are mistakes that are, maybe rushing or what have you, as long as they're not, malicious or unethical or those type of things, there's always, and as leaders, how we handle those are critical.
Yeah.
And having empathy and really being able to show some compassion but at the same time connecting the dots on how important it is to avoid these type of mistakes going forward. Quite honestly, it's one of the great opportunities if leaders really have the right perspective to really solidify the trust that they have within, from their direct reports, those that work for them. Because if you can show that compassion, and most mistakes can be corrected, very few are so detrimental that's not all the case, but most mistakes that I've experienced with making myself over the years and when I was younger, and those that they're not the end of the world. Now if they're repeated, then we have an issue, right, from that standpoint. But if you really don't, you want individuals to take chances and stretch their comfort zone and take on challenges that maybe intimidate them or scare them a little bit. That's how they really grow. And when they do that, there's going to be mistakes made. And so yeah, it's a great opportunity every time to elevate the confidence of employees, at the same time elevating the trust others have placed in you and how you handle those things.
You know, one of the things, Steve, that I received great advice for, and such as you, I'm sure we're next week, we're going to talk about the people who've impacted you and the impact they've made. But one of the great pieces of advice that I received from an individual I was very blessed to bring into my life was, you know, that as leaders, unless an individual is doing something, to the words you used a moment ago, that's unethical, illegal, or immoral, people don't purposely work to make mistakes.
Right.
Whether it's on a production line or a classroom. And I think a lot of times leadership is difficult because there's a dissemination that needs to be made. Is this a process issue? Is this a person issue? And 99.9% of my experiences is it's a process issue. Now that process may be something built into a repetitive manufacturing line. It may be some gap in a vision that wasn't shared appropriately in that regard. But I think too many times, because in the natural, individuals feel like fingers have to be pointed.
Right.
And many times it's hard to do it this way, right? Straight at the camera or the mirror, that we don't give the opportunities of those mistakes the credit that they really need.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, when I think about performance issues and people that we've dismissed over the years, almost in 100% of the cases, it's not because they made mistakes that were involved in the process. It's more about behavioral things and tardiness and how they get along with the team and just lack of effort. Those are the issues that cause it, that can cause risk of employment and those type of things. I can think of several, and I won't get into details of mistakes that have been made by our team members here in the last year that really did impact the customer, but we just have to learn how to, learn from those. They're good people, just and they don't make mistakes all the time. And there's another whole aspect of that about how we really need to focus on when they really do things well and how we can connect those dots and why that matters. And that's where I like to focus on a leader, is not that I don't address the issues or things that are done well, but I spend a lot of time as a leader when I see things done well, I connect the dots on why that matters. And I think that's inspirational for employees, and I think has worked quite well for me.
I love the concept, connected. Steve, my friend, God bless you. Thank you so much for being here this week. Great words of wisdom. And I really love the areas you helped us get into. And I know our viewers and listeners who are watching and will be watching down the road are going to get a lot out of this. And I look forward to next week's discussion. Again, we're going to dive into more about the people, and specifically, we'll talk about Steve's decision that he's reached, that now is the time for retirement. So Steve, thank you from the bottom of my heart, my friend.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching. I'm Kevin Smith for Steve Witges. God bless you and have a wonderful day.